to our television audience and our guests and other folks that are here. I want to remind you that this is the broadcast of the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities for the City of Omaha. We typically rebroadcast our meetings at 7 o'clock each Tuesday on Channel 18 of Cox Television. We're kind of working on that right now, so I'm hoping you hear this. But in any case, videos of the meeting can also be viewed on the Commission website at www.cityofomaha.org, and then click on the Mayor's Office, then click on the Disabilities Commission. Our format is that we have a meeting before our broadcast. We did meet. We had a quorum. We approved our minutes and agenda for the meeting today. I want to say a couple of quick things about the commission. First, our objectives. Our main objective is to promote quality of life, accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the city on behalf of and in cooperation with the citizens of Omaha who experience disabilities. To this end, the Commission advises the Mayor, the City Council, departments, and other City of Omaha personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, quality of life, and other issues affecting citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families to express concerns and resolutions regarding issues affecting them. We work to publicize to the citizens of Omaha the role of the Mayor's Commission and the resources available to assist citizens with disabilities, employers, housing representatives, business owners, engineers and architects, and others who have a role in bettering the life of Omaha citizens. We promote the awareness to the general public on the capabilities, needs, and desires of citizens with disabilities. We publicly recognize the efforts of employers, businesses, schools, organizations, and others who've demonstrated outstanding supportive programs and services for disabled citizens. We serve as an advocate for accessibility issues and implement plans and projects to improve services in the city. And finally, we review and implement plans and projects for advocating for with citizens with disabilities. And I think that's a duplicate, but I'll worry about that later. First of all, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Mark Smith. I am the chair of the commission. I work at the University of Nebraska Medical Center at the Monroe-Meyer Institute. I'm also the parent of a young man who has an intellectual disability, and I'm here representing intellectual disabilities. And I'd like to take this opportunity to have each of our members present introduce themselves.
Sure. My name is Ed Armstrong, and I work at QLI, and I represent adults with brain and spinal cord injuries.
Thank you, Ed.
I'm Reverend Lisa Sherman. I'm a pastor here in Omaha, and we are working on building a comprehensive disability ministry that can align all of our churches, and I'm the parent of numerous children with a wide variety of disabilities.
Thanks, Lisa.
And I'm Nancy Floral, and I'm with the Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and I represent individuals that are visually impaired, blind, and deafblind.
Thank you, Nancy. As part of our regular broadcast, we like to have different stakeholder agencies, support agencies, service agencies, and other programs and groups come in and present on their specific work and what resources they might offer to our viewing audience and our constituencies. This month we have a representative from Easter Seals of Nebraska, Shauna Dahlgren, who's going to talk a little bit about the variety of work that Easter Seals of Nebraska does in the Omaha area. And okay, but before that, I was going to invite Gerald Kuhn to come up and share a couple of comments.
All right. Gerald Kuhn, Assistant Director of Human Rights and Relations for the City of Omaha. Also the ADA Coordinator for the City of Omaha. Thank you for allowing me a few seconds of your time. I just have a question on what to do with some ADA complaints. As I said, I'm the ADA coordinator for the city, and I've recently have been inundated with a few, about 7 or 8 ADA complaints that I'm currently investigating. I want to know, is it all right if I invite those individuals who have these complaints about ADA issues within the city of Omaha to be able to attend this meeting and come forward and voice their complaints to this board, to this commission, and this commission be able to give some feedback and be able to support them in any way possible. And if we can, going forward, if that's an item that we can bring to this commission.
Well, given a central component of our mission is to advise and assist, the city and the representatives of the city, I would see that as well within the scope of our work. We typically haven't had folks come and present concerns to us. We've worked with individuals like yourself to address them, but unless there is a strong objection from the group, I would see that as perfectly reasonable.
I think it's a wonderful way for them to be heard and seen, know that they are seen and not invisible.
All right. I just see it as I have those sentiments as well. But after an investigation or during an investigation, I want to be able to invite them to this commission and to these meetings so they can be able to hear some of the resources that are available to them, and they can carry this message out into the community and be able to further assist them in the future.
Well, in addition to what the comments earlier, in a way, that's a perfect venue for the commission to stay informed as well about the kinds of concerns that are coming out. So I think that's a sparkling idea.
And if the commission feels so moved after hearing what's going on, possibly be able to, the commission be able to take in that complaint, and if any, at the very least, write a letter of support for that individual going forward to be able to assist with whatever issue or complaint that they may be having.
Well, we feel fortunate that we have had a very open and frank, degree of communication between the commission and the representatives of the city. So I would just see that continuing along those lines in terms of whether it's a letter or recommendations or feedback. I think that's, again, a really good idea.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Gerald. Apologies for putting things out of order, but it's been one of those days, guys. So without further ado, again, our presenter is Shauna Dahlgren from Easter Seals, Nebraska, who's going to talk about the work and activities of Easter Seals. Shauna is a colleague of mine, and we usually get along, I think. So,
I hope.
But I'm not trying not to be too informal here. I'll let Shauna go ahead.
Okay. My name is Shauna Dahlgren with Easter Seals, Nebraska. My title is actually Work Incentive and Community Outreach Specialist. And I'm here just to talk about Easter Seals services in general, kind of the services that we provide, and how we might be able to help individuals with disabilities. We actually provide services across the state, not just in Omaha. We are essentially primarily a disability services agency. So almost every one of our staff is a direct service provider, but we do have kind of our hands and voices in a lot of conversations around the state about accessibility and many of the things that Mark mentioned earlier. But what we do kind of across the state is a variety of services, essentially, for individuals with all different types of disabilities. So we are not just one disability-specific necessarily organization, but we work with individuals with all different types of disabilities and sometimes individuals with multiple disabilities. Primarily our service areas or our programs are agribility, working with farmers and ranchers who have been injured or have a significant health condition that prevents them from continuing in whatever tasks they were doing on the farm or the ranch. We have individuals that go out to the farm and work with the individuals and their families to do farm and ranch site assessments and make recommendations for adaptive equipment or how to accommodate certain tasks so that they can continue doing what they love. We also provide a low-interest loan program for individuals, Nebraskans with disabilities or parents of children with disabilities who maybe need some type of assistive technology, home modifications, those types of things. We also have camp, so we do summer camp. It is an overnight camp for individuals, again, with all different types of disabilities. It's a typical summer camp activities like fishing and canoeing and swimming and horseback riding and all of those, a ropes course, all of those typical summer camp activities, but they are adapted for the individual and what the individual's needs are. So theoretically, every camper can participate in every activity according to what they're able or not able to do, or what they choose to do or not do. They don't have to participate in all those activities if they don't want to. But we have nurses on staff 24/7 the entire time that they're there. The camper to counselor ratio is assigned according to what that individual's needs are and how well our staff know that camper, if it's their first time versus if they've been coming for 50 years. So, and that is really for individuals age 5 and older. I think our oldest camper has been like 85 or 86, so literally it kind of is the lifespan from age 5 up. So that is something positive, we feel like. The summer camps happen typically kind of June through the end of July, maybe first week of August. And then outside of those summer camp months, we do weekend respite camps that happen one weekend a month, basically September to April, let's say. Excuse me. The summer camp right now happens at the Boy Scout camp, Camp Eagle, out by Cedar Bluffs or Fremont, Nebraska. And the summer camp or the weekend respite camps happen at the 4-H camp out in like the Gretna, Ashland area.
Taki.
Yes, but I never say it right, so I don't try. So that's kind of where things are at. And then, of course, we're always looking to expand those services since those camps are primarily held in this area. We are kind of continuously looking at how do we get children and adults with disabilities from outside of those areas to be able to participate in camp, whether it be coming to where those locations already exist or the possibility of expanding to other locations. So those are, again, conversations that we're involved in and things that we're trying to figure out. And then the other probably largest program area or the other place where we serve the most individuals is kind of our workforce development services. We have several certified benefits planners working with individuals who receive Social Security, disability, and or SSI benefits and are either working or want to work at whatever level they are able or choose to work. So no matter how many hours that is, no matter what type of job it is, those kinds of things, we try to provide the information they need to make informed decisions about work. So whether that is SSDI, SSI, Medicare, Medicaid, housing, SNAP, whatever types of benefits they receive, sometimes veterans benefits, workers' comp, all of those kinds of things, just so that they are prepared for any changes that will be coming or have accurate information about what should or should not change, when it should or should not change, and provide advocacy for them and help navigating those systems. whether it be Social Security or Health and Human Services or any other agency they're working with. So that is kind of in a nutshell the services that we provide, again, across the state.
Thanks, Shauna. One thing I wanted to mention right off the bat is that I am familiar with innumerable circumstances where children and adults accessed your camp programs, and I highly recommend them. Children and adults that I thought would not be good candidates for a camp experience had a marvelous time. And they're also individuals that I thought we're going to get a call in a day, and because they don't hear a word. And so I don't know, there must be something about Camp Eagle. Once you cross into Camp Eagle, then it's like, a completely different world. But I highly recommend it if you have a child or adult in that is interested in attending a camp, which I think just about every kid should go to camp. But how would somebody access that program if they were interested?
So if they were interested in camp, all of our programs can be found on the Easter Seals, Nebraska website, so our local website, and I can provide that website address if anybody's interested in that.
Oh, please.
It would be www.easterseals, EASTERSEALS.com/NE for Nebraska. And that will get to our website, and then you can find out about all of the different services there. And to your point, Mark, I really appreciate you saying that about our camp. I don't directly work with the camp often, but because I do a lot of outreach and I'm out talking to a lot of individuals, I hear stories from parents or individuals that have attended camp. And specifically, one father from Nebraska City told me a story about kind of just what you were talking about, where he actually got a hotel room close in Fremont, thinking that for sure the day that he took his daughter or the next day he was going to get a call saying, please come get her. And he ended up going home after the first day because he never got a call. And then found out his daughter thoroughly enjoyed the camp and didn't have any problems. So it is not unusual for parents to have that experience or caregivers to have that experience where they're concerned, especially if it's their child's or their loved one's first time away from the home, not knowing how they might react to not being at home, not knowing how they might interact with other individuals, behavior issues, concerns, and things like that. And I'm not the camp director, so I couldn't say for sure, but I don't know of anybody actually that's been sent home from camp. I've worked at Easter Seals for about 15 years. So they are very accommodating, try to make it a positive experience for the individual that's there, which in turn is a positive experience for the family or whoever has, sent their loved one to camp. So it works out a lot more than people think. And I did not mention, but we do now also have day camps available. So for individuals who maybe are not ready to put their loved one in an overnight camp, or they're not sure if their loved one is ready for an overnight camp, there are day camps available where the individual could just go during the daytime and not stay overnight. We also are offering camps that are for siblings or children of parents with disabilities. So maybe they have a sibling with a disability, but they themselves do not have a disability, or they have a parent with a disability. That camp is also available for individuals who to attend, where maybe they could learn from other individuals who also have siblings with disabilities or parents with disabilities, and would have activities in addition to the regular summer camp activities specific to that. Also a camp for, again, children who may not have a disability, but want to learn more or become more disability aware or more disability friendly. So they would kind of, again, go along to camp alongside of other individuals with disabilities, and in addition to the regular summer camp activities, would maybe have a daily activity around leadership or being a good friend, or, you know, how to interact with individuals and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can guarantee you, Shauna, that there's several members of our commission that feel very strongly that the ability to appropriately recreate is critical to full involvement in the community.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a terrific service.
Is there a cost to attend camp, or how is these things funded?
It depends a little bit on the type of camp. The bottom line is, yes, there is a cost to camp because we are renting a space for one. And depending on the needs of the individuals, we have to have nurses and staff and those kind of things that also there's a cost involved with. However, to the individual that is attending the camp, sometimes there's not a cost out of their own pocket, essentially. Several of the Medicaid waivers will pay for camp. Sometimes there are camperships available, or like scholarships, essentially, on a kind of an income, sliding scale income-based situation. We may be able to offer camperships for individuals to go.
Okay.
Some cases are self-pay if they have the means. So there's kind of a variety of ways that the camperships are actually offered through some grants that we have. Yeah.
And the camp counselors, are they largely volunteers?
They're paid.
Okay.
Yes, they are paid. Many of them, again, since I can't say like 100% exactly where all of them come from, but we work with Camp America for one.
Okay.
So we do kind of go and interview staff from other countries through the Camp America program, and then bring staff who have chosen to work at the camp in Nebraska here through that program. So some of them are through that. Many of them are local or from, you know, somewhere in Nebraska. They may be students, special education students, and during the summer they're not attending class maybe. So they're offering services through that. So there's probably a variety of different backgrounds and individuals, but and many of them are returning staff from one year to the next, but some of them are new. Regardless, they go through a fairly intensive period of training to provide services throughout the summer.
Cool.
So.
The agribility services sound really exciting. Do you have any stories to share of like equipment that people have managed to get back into, or some roles that they've been able to do?
I probably won't do it nearly the justice it deserves, but sure, I could share some stories. There are lots of minor accommodations that people can make. Typical assistive technology that is used by everyone can also be used, just like an iPhone can be used for disability-related issues, can be kind of universally accessible. So there's some things like that, but specific to farm equipment and those kind of things. Lots of utility vehicles that are modified for individuals to utilize and be able to get to certain places on their farm or ranch is something that's often recommended. There are certain types of lifts and different things that can either be mounted to a specific combine or vehicle, piece of farm equipment to get into that specific unit, or there are truck lifts that are made to get an individual from the truck into almost any piece of equipment that's on the farm. Now with technology and things like that, there are GPS is used for individuals to be able to plant and use those pieces of equipment throughout the year, like a farmer or rancher normally would use them, but maybe that farmer or rancher doesn't have use of their arms or something like that, so they wouldn't be able to control it on their own. But once the GPS system is programmed exactly where that plot is, then all the individual really has to do is get in and maybe push a button or something, and the piece of equipment does the rest while that individual is sitting in there. The one that often comes to mind as an individual is a younger individual with a spinal cord injury who his family owns a cattle, like a feedlot and things like that. And he was insistent that part of his duties were to get on that horse and help wrangle those cattle and everything. So he actually uses a modified saddle that he can actually get into and supports him well enough that he can be on that horse on his own and using the horse just like any other person would use a horse.
That's awesome.
So, so that's some kind of general examples, but lots of things like that.
So I was curious, Shauna, about how often that program is accessed. You know, how many folks per year you might work with.
For AgriBility specifically?
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember the exact numbers from last year.
No, I won't hold you to it.
Because don't quote me. But I believe it was somewhere between like 75 and 100, I'm going to say. Cool. Somewhere around there anyway. But one of the issues with AgriBility services is just because it is mostly used in the rural parts of the state, is just getting the word out about the program so that people know that it's there and how it can help them. So it is a partnership actually with UNL Extension. So UNL Extension, we're the Disability Services Organization, but the money actually comes through UNL Extension. And so they have a part of the marketing and those kinds of things too, and education that happens, throughout the state as well. So
That's a pretty common sense collaboration, if I would say so.
Ask if you could maybe expand a little bit about the benefits planning, because there's so many changes with WIOA and the importance of individuals with disability understanding benefits, and that employment is really an option for them, but they need to understand the nuances of the program.
So you want me to expand on the services themselves, or how we're providing services, or
Maybe
what?
a bit of both,
Okay.
because it looks a little differently, maybe based on where the referral comes from for you, correct?
A little bit.
Yeah,
It doesn't, the service itself doesn't necessarily look that much different other than how it is provided. As far as whether it's done in person or if it's done mostly over the phone, or through video conference and those kind of things. The services themselves essentially don't change too much as far as the scope of services, but the intensity of services is a little bit different. We are right now, essentially, we have a grant with the Social Security Administration to provide that benefits planning service across the state to really anybody who is 14 or over and receiving Social Security disability or SSI benefits based on disability. But there are over 60,000 beneficiaries working age in the state of Nebraska, and the funding for that specific program is somewhat limited as far as being able to serve that many individuals, or even the number of individuals that hear about us and contact us for those services. So we work with other partners like the Commission for the Blind, Vocational Rehabilitation, Nebraska VR, and lots of other partners to provide services however we can. We are an employment network with Social Security's Ticket to Work program, so that's kind of where ultimately a lot of individuals are served through that program or through one of the other partnerships. We get referrals from all of those places. So as far as that individual is concerned, receiving the services, they don't necessarily know who's paying for the service or kind of where the funding comes from in the background. That's something we determine internally, like which program, ultimately is the best fit for them, and the services that they need. But essentially what happens is when someone calls, either they themselves call and say, I'm thinking about work, and I want to know how my benefits are affected, or I want to know how much I can work and not lose my benefits is often what we hear. Or they're referred from one of those agencies, and maybe a counselor calls or a parent calls or somebody calls and says, I want to know that my child, or that my brother, whoever, is going to have the services and supports that he needs and not lose them if he chooses to take this job, he or she chooses to take this job. And so it's not just services to the individual saying work is possible for you, here's kind of the options, here are the work incentives that are available, here is the options for continued health insurance, whether it be Medicare or Medicaid or employer coverage or any of those kind of things. It's often a combination of services and information to that individual and then anybody else that is a stakeholder in that person's life, whether it be a spouse or, like I said, another service agency or a parent or somebody like that. With WIOA, it is a little bit interesting because benefits planning is specifically mentioned in there as far as a service needed or an important service for individuals who are seeking work or making decisions about work. But I think with the implementation of WIOA and just that larger kind of all the stakeholders involved with that legislation, whether it be the core agency partners or any of the other community partners, I feel like that's all still sort of getting worked out a little bit as far as the practical application of how that all works and who refers to who and everything. But because Easter Seals is an agency that provides services across the state, for us really doesn't matter where the referral comes from as far as us being able to provide service. We just try to provide the best service that we can to that individual in whatever manner makes the most sense for that individual. If it is in person, then we try to get them services in person. But again, just depending on the program area, they may not have the staff or the budget to be able to do that. So a lot of services are provided over the phone or in another manner. Does that answer your question? But yes, the bottom line, like you said, is work is possible for most people, and it's just figuring out what those options are and what's the best, what are the best options for that individual to maximize their work potential.
Thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for the service that you provide, that your organization does. I want to touch for a little bit on the camp and the campers. Being a parent of special needs children, I always hear about programs, but the main thing that I want to know before I get my hope up for my child is there any criteria, either medically or behavioral, that would make an individual not a good candidate for the camp experience? I know that's kind of such a broad statement because each individual is different and how they absorb things. But more often than not, I'll hear about a program, I'll get really excited, and I'll call and ask, and then I'll find out, well, your child falls outside the bounds of what we can meet. So I didn't know if you had any basic guidelines or where an individual could go to kind of discover what your parameters are for a camper.
I'd have to say that I don't think there really are any specific written guidelines. But again, I'm not the camp director, so don't quote me on that because she may say differently. I would say that the best source for information is probably the camp director or the assistant camp director, and to talk to them personally, because if there is anything written, it's generally not broad enough to cover all circumstances.
And where
as I
would they be
mentioned-
able to obtain that information? Would the information on who to contact be on the website that you gave us earlier?
It would be on the website. However, I know Jamie Biedrowski is our camp director, and that's Jami, last name Biedrowski. I'd have to write it down probably to make sure I spell it right, but it's Biodrowski. And her phone number is 402-930-4053. That is her number at her desk. Now, mind you, this is probably the first week that they are really having counselors come in, and they are really ramping up for training and everything that's going on. So this is kind of the point where it may be a little bit difficult to get a hold of the camp director or the assistant camp director. So the other person that would typically be in the office that somebody could call is named Holly Windorski, and that is just HOLLYWINDORSKI. And her phone number is 402-930-4106. And she could also answer a lot of questions about camp. But I honestly would say that there probably really isn't necessarily anything specific that would eliminate the possibility of attending camp. When people are registering for camp, there's a whole process and some forms that have to be completed by both, say, if there's a parent involved, by the parent. If there is an agency involved, by someone who's at the service providing agency, say if they live in a residential facility or something like that. There are medical forms that have to be completed by a medical provider. So there's opportunity for any of those parties to say these are specific considerations for this particular individual that will be attending camp. There's opportunity for those discussions and that information to be provided ahead of time. If there are, I think I might have heard you talk earlier about, certain triggers or, maybe certain things that are going to elicit certain behaviors, those kinds of things. That is good information to be provided ahead of time, especially if it's a camper who's first time attending camp. But I would say that there's not necessarily any specific conditions or behaviors or anything like that that would prevent a person from being able to consider attending camp.
And thank you. Thank you for giving the names and the contact information. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there any deadline for camp?
Um,
I would think since we're getting towards the end of May.
There's not necessarily a deadline for registration, other than registration typically starts for summer camp around the first or second week of January. And so there are campers and camper families who are anxiously await that date every year to make sure they get first choice of which week of camp their camper wants to attend, because there are weeks, some weeks may be like a teen week, some weeks may be a youth week, some weeks may be young adult or adult, but then there are weeks that are all ages. So depending on that individual, they may choose to attend a certain session of camp. So that registration usually starts around the first or second week of January, and individuals are allowed to register for 1 week of camp at that time. And then after April 1st usually is when campers can register for more than 1 week. That way everybody has the hopefully ample opportunity to get in and get registered and find out about camp and register for at least 1 week. before just a select number of people get to register for every week. But there isn't necessarily a deadline per se for camp registration. It just depends if there's openings or not remaining in that week of camp. Right now, I know they have openings still in day camp. They have openings in the Camp Lean on Me, which is the camp for siblings or children of parents with disabilities. And I think that camp is happening maybe the last week of July or sometime. Don't quote me, but maybe sometime around that. And then the short sessions. There's a couple of weeks because of holidays and stuff that the camp week is shortened, and apparently everybody wants to go to the full week and not the shortened week, so there are some openings still for that shortened week. So the real deadline is not necessarily registration if there's openings, but there would maybe be deadlines for getting medical documents and that kind of information for your camper to be able to attend on time.
And where's the day camps? Are they?
They're happening at
same
Camp Eagle as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many weeks of camps do you guys do? It sounds like you must do quite a few.
The summer camps are, I should have brought the brochure up here, I could say, usually 8 or 9 weeks of camp.
Wow.
So you typically starting like the first week of June,
Yeah.
and then ending like the last week of July or into that first week of August. So 8, 9, 10-ish
Cool.
weeks.
Are you guys a non-profit, Easter Seals?
Yes,
Are you participating in Omaha Gives?
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you for asking that.
You're welcome. Yeah. I don't know if you want to
Yes.
maybe let people know how to support you.
We are actually a nonprofit agency. We, about 6 years, we used to be kind of a standalone nonprofit. And in 2012, we actually merged with the Visiting Nurse Association of the Midlands. So we technically are VNA, Easter Seals, Nebraska, but we maintained our own independent 501c3 status, so people can donate directly to Easter Seals, Nebraska, and not have it go through essentially another agency. So if somebody wanted to support us, and I think I had a little bit of a conversation with Lisa earlier about people contacting Easter Seals, and they sometimes may think that they're contacting the local organization, but they may be actually contacting the National Easter Seals Organization, and the National Easter Seals Organization operates their own campaigns for fundraising and things like that. That's not necessarily specific to Nebraska. So people may just need to be aware, you know, if they want their money to go, if they're in Nebraska and they want their money to go locally, then they would probably want to donate directly to the local affiliate, which is the headquarters is here in Omaha. Like I said, as part of the Visiting Nurse Association, but we are participating in Omaha Gives, so you'd be able to see Easter Seals, Nebraska listed there.
Nice.
In other ways.
Cool.
So.
Shauna, you mentioned it's a statewide service. Do you have offices and staff anywhere else in Nebraska?
Yes, we do. And many of us, when we are working in a program that can provide in-person services, we do a lot of traveling across the state. So we actually have office locations in Omaha. We have an office location in Lincoln. We have one in Geneva, Nebraska, and then one in Hastings, Nebraska. And then we have several staff who actually office from their homes in different areas of the state. The employee we have right now that lives the farthest from Omaha is located in Sidney, Nebraska area.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Not to jump back and forth too much, Shauna, but about what kind of caseload, I'm just curious about your benefits support. What kind of caseloads are your benefit support professionals carrying at this point?
I don't know if I would have a standard answer for that, because it kind of depends on where their referrals come from
Right.
and what program that they work in. So there's not necessarily a set number of, a set caseload number. Essentially, regardless of, kind of what program that staff member works in, we try to, as referrals come in or as people contact us, we try to get those individuals to people who maybe would be the most able to respond the most quickly, to that individual's needs. But how quickly we can provide services is not necessarily just something that is determined internally by how much of a caseload we have. It's often determined by how quickly, because we don't want to provide guidance to individuals generally. We want to be able to provide very specific, person-specific guidance to them based on us having accurate and complete information about their benefit situation. And so in order for us to make sure we're providing complete and thorough and accurate guidance to that individual, we need to verify benefits with the agencies that are administering them. So through Social Security Administration, through Health and Human Services, through housing, whatever agencies they're working with. And so sometimes how quickly we can provide service depends on how quickly those agencies respond to us and our inquiries about that person's situation. So, I don't know that specifically answers a caseload,
Well,
question, but.
Well, I was really kind of headed the direction, Shauna, of about how many folks are you working with at any given time or over a period of time. As I move around through the disability circles in the state, one of the critical aspects of, again, community life is the opportunity for employment.
Right.
Easter Seals is a huge player from my perspective in terms of getting folks that want to be employed into jobs through the work that you do. So I'm just kind of curious what kind of numbers we're talking about.
I would say between all of our kind of program areas or all of the benefits planning staff, at any given time, maybe a total of, and this is kind of a guess because I don't know, we also provide benefits counseling through a project that Social Security is administering right now. The Promoting Opportunity Demonstration Project. So if anybody's heard about POD, Nebraska was one of the states that was chosen to participate in sort of this research project that Social Security is doing to look at the implications of making the Social Security disability benefit an adjusted benefit, similar to how SSI is adjusted, essentially letting people work and not lose all of their cash benefit is kind of the bottom line of that. So I'm not certain of the total numbers that are enrolled in that program and receiving benefits planning through us, but I would say including those and our Social Security project and our Ticket to Work project, you're probably talking about maybe 750-ish people across the state, something like that, maybe a little bit more. But when you compare that number to the 66,000 potential beneficiaries that are out there and may have the option to choose work, that's only a very small part of it, or a very small percentage of those individuals. And so I would say that we have the capacity to serve more individuals. And so part of it is just getting the word out about the, services that we provide and the significance of those, and hopefully making it so beneficiaries are not afraid to inquire and think about work.
I'm still impressed, so it's excellent.
Navigating Social Security is never easy.
Right. Right.
Other questions? Well, thanks, Shauna. That was very illuminative. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to come down and talk to us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad to be here. Thank you.
I'll second that. And I'm amazed at how much you guys do. I mean,
I feel like we're still a secret,
Yeah.
like that we're still like the best kept secret, because I often hear when I'm out talking about Easter seals and what we do, like, I had no idea you did all that. And there are still so many
Yeah.
Nebraskans, I feel like, that don't even know Easter Seals Nebraska is here, let alone know the services that we provide and how we might be able to help them.
Where does
So-
the name come from? I mean, I've heard of Easter seals for years and years, but I've never. I was just sitting there, I was thinking, where's the name come from?
It's from the national organization.
Okay.
So it started as the Crippled Children's Society, by an individual who had a son that was severely affected by polio. And so it started as the Crippled Children's Society and then eventually became Easter Seals. And part of the national campaign, it happened around Easter time.
Okay.
And there were little labels, like the labels that people used to stick on the back of an envelope to seal it.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking it like kind of came from that, like they're
Gotcha.
Easter seals for the labels, and that was just part of the campaign that they did. And so we are a local affiliate of the national organization
Cool.
serving the state of Nebraska.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hey, thanks again, Shauna.
you're welcome.
I'm,
Thank you.
I'm gonna out Shauna too. Shauna is also a disability policy specialist and participates in a number of activities around supporting people with disabilities in the policy and legislation area. So, but she's just too shy to mention it, I'm sure. But
Thank you, Mark. Did you have another question, Nancy?
Just going to say, maybe you could repeat your the contact information about how people can reach Easter Seals.
Sure. I would really say there's no wrong door for contacting Easter Seals. So as long as you get a hold of someone that works at Easter Seals Nebraska, we'll ask enough questions to get you in contact with the right person to answer your questions if we're not that person. But you can either find us on the internet at www.easterseals.com/NE for Nebraska. That's our local page, or our local affiliates page, I should say. You can also call the 800 number from anywhere in the state, which is 1-800-471-6425. And when you call that number, either somebody will answer and kind of direct you to where you need to go, or there's a list of programs there that you can choose from, and it will be directed to a specific person's phone. Otherwise, if you're specifically calling about camp, then probably at this moment the best contact is Holly at that 402-930-4106. And she really could, Holly essentially could answer questions about almost any of our programs and get somebody connected to someone else from there. Or I always tell people they can call me too. The best number to reach me, probably 402-889-8425. You're welcome.
thanks, Shauna.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Very, very well done. I want to remind folks to have a pen and paper handy to take notes, as I'm going to give folks a chance to sound off on any announcement that they might have. I do apologize for kind of staggering the beginning of the meeting, but it's just been that kind of day. Also, I apologize for the commission. We typically have a sign language interpreter. Our sign language interpreter is stuck way out of town, and we just were not able to come up with somebody to take their place. We're hoping to get this captioned. If you're reading captions right now, we were successful. We're also in the process of trying to identify new members. You can contact any of the members of the commission or go onto our website to get the application if you might be interested in participating in what we do here. With that, oh, and I do want to say that, well, in any case, I will open it up and start with Nancy in terms of if you have any announcements or things coming up.
Not at this time.
Thanks.
Not at this time.
I would just like to mention again, Omaha Gives. The website is www.omahagives.org. And for those people not familiar with Omaha Gives, it's an opportunity to log on and to give to your favorite nonprofit. So there'll be a list of all the nonprofits in Omaha, and you can select who you want to donate money to. And a special shout out to Easter Seals, as being obviously they're doing amazing things, and they're a nonprofit, so they're funded by these kind of things. So I would suggest that you consider those. And then also my company QLI is featured as well.
Very good. So I want to thank Nancy, Lisa, and Ed, Kat, our support person, Gerald Kuhn, and for their good work on behalf of the people of Omaha. And with that, we're adjourned for today. Our next meeting is on June 24th. At 3:30, and we will be meeting here, and then hopefully we will have subsequent rebroadcasts of that meeting, again at 7 o'clock on Cox Channel 18. Thanks very much.